Ah, Resistance 2, how much I miss thee. Certainly more than a fucking YouTube order. Oh man, the stories I could tell from this game alone could take hours, and I only wish I had it recorded when this game was in style. You know, if I had to take a guess, this is the second most played game on my list in terms of hours and days played because the co-op was that fucking addicting. You know, unfortunately, it's a shame the servers were recently turned off by Sony as they wanted to start saving costs on games that were probably older, and people probably rarely played up in this motherfucker. Obviously, games can't stay online forever if people aren't playing them anymore. The same fate will occur for games like Call of Duty 4, Battlefield 3, and Halo, and all those other games that people enjoy. One day, they will become too outdated and the servers will be shut off. Resistance 2 happened to be one of those damn games, man. But anyway, as with almost every game around the time that this one was released, it had three components. It had the campaign, it had competitive, and it had co-op. All three elements had things that were extremely impressive back then that to this date, some of those elements are still better than most of the games that are being released today. And being that I played this game so much, who better than me to give you the details of one of the most addicting games ever made? Now, let's start with online for a second. I didn't play the multiplayer component called competitive too much because it had a number of annoying alien shits that generally pissed me off. You know, I don't like all the alien crap in the game. However, that doesn't mean it wasn't bad. Matter of fact, Resistance 2 was able to run 60 people in rooms. That's right, 60 people without lag. Now, let me repeat that for any developer or studio listening. 60 players, not even a cunt hair of lag unless your own shitty connection was goddamn terrible. This game ran flawlessly online. Flawlessly. Hit detection was spot on. Lobbies filled up quick. There were no lag spikes, no rubber banding, no server disconnects. Sony created and hosted the best server of any game on this console. This is no exaggeration. Anyone who played online will tell you that it surpassed everything and anything that you can imagine when it comes to latency. It crushed its competitors, which, by the way, the game was released the same year as World at War. Since I hated World at War so much and the quality of this game was unmatched, you can easily see why I spent a whole year playing this, yet barely got to level 15 in World at War. There was no comparison. This was superior. Battlefield 4 would be jealous. Modern Warfare 3 would be jealous. The Sims should be jealous. Borderlands should be jealous. Every game that has problems holding up a connection with players in a room should be fucking embarrassed that Resistance 2 had no lag with 60 people in the room. The 60 people caused an absolute clusterfuck of action. But not a single moment of that clusterfuck was disrupted by any discernible lag. Now, in addition to multiplayer, they had their campaign, which had massive boss fights. Huge scale boss fights, but scripted. And basically, once you figured out the quick time events and once you figured out the pattern, you can easily beat all the bullshit that it took to beat these motherfuckers, man. The most famous one being the Leviathan fight in Chicago, where you needed to fire rockets at him, and you had to grab them in a certain sequence, and then he had to lure him under a bridge. Oh, fuck all that shit, man. You know, you never really actually face him, and the only way you lose is by failing to do the sequence quick enough or in the right order. You know, as entertaining as the campaign was, it really wasn't all that from a plot standpoint. And it was certainly completely different from the first game in the series. Now, the year before Resistance 2 came out, Call of Duty 4 released, which pretty much set the market and standards for shooter games. Resistance realized that their controls and their ideas from the first game now look completely and utterly outdated, and they needed to go back to the drawing board and modernize their game. Their solution? Copy Call of Duty. Almost everything changed. The controls changed from the button configurations and the layouts. The weapon system was changed from a weapon wheel to now you have just 2 guns in your inventory. Shit, even the military in the story changed. You know, they weren't too far away from World War II, but all of a sudden, they had modern equipment and protection. What the fuck? How the fuck did they create all that shit in such a short amount of time? Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. The explanation was, oh, we stole alien technology. Come on, man. Instead of World War II era uniforms, they had modern day equipment with earpieces and armor and all that shit. That wasn't available back in the day. All the modern trends that Call of Duty 4 was able to use in their game, Resistance wanted, and they threw it into the game and explained it by saying, ooh, we copied alien technology. Aliens didn't give a fuck about speaking. They grunted, motherfucker. They don't need a goddamn earpiece. Come on, man. Anything that had to do with World War II was gone in the game. Everything they worked on in the first game was stripped away to make it feel more like a modern match to Call of Duty 4. It was plain and fucking obvious from the controls to the mission to the equipment. Now, on top of that, and this is a major spoiler alert, so you're gonna have to either pause the video right here or fast forward and do something. Did y'all fast forward? If not, oh well, you won. Now, at the end of this campaign of Resistance 2, they kill off the main character, Nathan Hale. What the fuck? How do you kill off the main character? You know, the ending wasn't even explained with the whole two worlds or whatever the fuck being seen in the background. Nothing made any damn sense. You kill him, you show us some strange ass worlds at the end of the game, and then part 3 starts with some odd bullshit. I mean, no, really. The end of the game, which was similar to the first game, by the way, but I'm going to talk about that in a second, was Hale blowing up their mothership or whatever the fuck, and then you see some different worlds in the background after that. Now, if you didn't pay attention to the game or collect all the intel in the game, you wouldn't know that the Chimera were trying to build transporter towers. However, all the intel says is that they believe they were building some kind of teleporting tower. They had no proof. It was just a fucking hunch. Read a couple more pieces of intel, put 2 and 2 together, and the Chimera were trying to bring their planet to Earth. Yeah, nice to tell us in the fucking game, as opposed to making us go after that nugget of info with optional collectibles, motherfucker. You know, on top of that, the ending was pretty much the same as the first and the third. The final chapter in each game is visit some Chimeran structure, destroy it, and you win the game. Whoop-de-motherfucking do. Well, not really, because I destroyed the tower in the first game, I destroyed the mothership in the second game, yet the Chimera was still kicking my fucking ass in the third game. What the fuck, man? Don't get me wrong, the campaign was fun, but that's because it felt like Call of Duty. Story-wise, though, you sat there scratching your head, scratching your ass, whatever the fuck. It was fucking stupid. But for all the missteps the game took with the story, the one thing that was solid was co-op. Now, I have jokingly said this before, but I will jokingly say it again. I am the greatest Resistance 2 co-op player in the world. Period. Indisputable, undeniable fact. There was no competition. None. I beat them all. Every single one of those cocksuckers. People are going to be all like, it's co-op. What the fuck are you talking about? Nah, this co-op was sort of like a competitive type thing. You know, the shit had leaderboards and kill-death ratio stats with deaths and all that crap, point totals, whatever the fuck. And since the game had 3 classes, I would use all 3 classes to get all the points. You know, I did a couple videos on this a few years ago and I detailed all the shit about Resistance co-op. With any of the 3 classes, I could always outkill and outpoint any top leaderboard player of that class with their preferred class. If one of the top ranking medics were in the room, I would take the medic and I would get more points and more kills. If one of the top spec ops or soldiers were in the room, I would take the same class and I would proceed to whoop their shit in. Not one game did I finish second to any player in the room that wasn't in my party. You know, people I played with would beat me because we played like a team instead of like individuals and shit like that. So if obviously somebody got more kills than me and we passed the mission, hey, I don't really give a shit. There were plenty of times those motherfuckers would actually go out and try it. I remember my buddy Lee, oh man, he would run ahead and just try and rocket everything because he wanted to make sure that he beat me in kills up in this motherfucker. But man, with the medic class, nobody died on my watch as long as they didn't do something stupid. If you did something stupid, I can't help you, but if you played the game you were supposed to, you would be fine on my watch. Basically, you got points as the medic for people sucking at the game. If you ended up on a team that didn't suck, you got no points. All of your points came from healing your teammates. Obviously, to heal your teammates, they have to take damage. When I played with my friends, nobody took damage because we knew what we were doing. When you play with randoms and the more suckage on your team, the more points you got healing their stupid asses. Spec Ops was the class that threw all the ammo, but you would get assholes who would stay on the other side of the map because they didn't want to die and all that other bullshit. You know, this was the class that people used when they wanted to boost their kill-death ratio into the 100,000s and probably millions, making sure that they didn't die. You know, fuck all that shit, man. I threw myself right into the shit every single time. I remember this one dude who had a high faked kill-death ratio would play one map over and over and over and over again as the Spec Op class, and he never threw anybody ammo. Fuck that, man. I was throwing ammo and I was taking all the kills. Every time I got in the room with that cunt ball, I beat him in kills and I beat him in points. That bitch would host the room and play on the only map he liked, and he would stay as far away from the action as possible to prevent dying. Meanwhile, I would take the same class, jump directly into the shitstorm of enemies, kill everything, take all his kills, all his points, and I wouldn't die on top of that, and I had a higher kill-death ratio than that motherfucker. So even protecting himself from not dying, I did it better, and I played like a team player. You know, the soldier class in the game was the killer class with a shield and a rocket launcher and shit like that. You know, when I had Hatred with me, he would just sit behind me, throw me all the ammo and shit, throw me all the rocket launchers. Having Hatred on my team allowed me to get into the top 10 in the world in kills in that motherfucker, and I probably could have gone even higher if I wanted, but eventually the game ran its course. You know, by the time I was on top of the leaderboards, I did it in half the time the other people took to get there. Nobody was playing this game anymore. It pretty much died off. You know, I was the only one playing a dying game because all my other friends had moved on to different games, or they got bored of playing this bullshit, man. You know, co-op allowed 8 people in a room at a time, and we had all kinds of fun together. You know, anytime we managed to get a full party of 8 people in a room, we tore ass through the game, and we had fun taunting anyone that died or any one of the medics that didn't get any damn points stuck in last place. Oh man, if you were a medic on our team, you basically knew you were finishing way the fuck behind in last place, man. It was so hard to get kills as a medic with all of us in the goddamn room and shit like that. But honestly, being able to play with 8 of your friends in a lag-free room was something most games can only dream of being able to do now. Resistance accomplished this years ago. Other games didn't even come close to that level of excellence. What's funny is the game was completely different from co-op games you see today. For starters, the enemy AI was incredibly fucking stupid. I mean, they mainly moved into the same position over and over and over again. They never moved from their set rotation all game long. As long as you knew where the enemies would stand, you could survive the game with ease. It was that fucking simple. There were only 2 enemies in the entire game who would charge after you at any given position, and you rarely saw them. So all you had to do was know the exact invisible line that the Chimera would not cross. When you knew where that invisible line was, you were set in this game, and you would easily tear ass through all the motherfuckers this game had. You know, co-op games nowadays have much harder AI, but this was one of the first full-scale co-op games that was made for the consoles at the time, and it was fucking incredible. Granted, the AI was not that great, but it was actually better than most AI of the games at the time. Most AI of the games at the time, man, they just stand there and they just wait for you to shoot them. So this pretty much had the same AI as some of the other games. They just happened to do it in an 8-person lag-free co-op room. You know, overall, this game wasn't the greatest ever created, but holy fuck was it fun. The hours you could sink into co-op alone with this shit trumps pretty much anything and everything you could imagine. It was that good, and it was that addicting. Now, understandably, Sony shut down the servers at the end of March, so I wasn't able to go back for one last hurrah on the game, but my videos on YouTube that I posted up a few years ago show how awesome this game really was. And I'll be honest, if there was a game in my collection that I wish I could just go back, get a full party of all my friends, and play for one more day, this would be the one. All those who played it and enjoyed it and know the fun we had would probably agree that this game wasn't perfect, but it was great fun when you got all your friends together in a room and you got to be able to play with them lag-free. This is one game I will certainly remember and miss when I move on to my next console. But anyway, that's it for part 2. We got 53 more motherfucking videos to go. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.